Stop shooting at f1.4. I watched Samuel Elkin's video about this and his kind of take on it, and I wanted to A, expand on it, and B, give my own opinion because I can. Beauty of the internet! So before we get into that though, this is also kind of an educational video where I'm going to tell you the basics of Aperture. If you already know the basics of Aperture, go over here. You can listen to me give advice on why you need to stop shooting at the widest possible aperture. So, Aperture has been compared to the human eye, where the aperture blades will open up if you need to let in more light, or close down if there's too much. That's not a perfect analogy because the human eye is seeing in a different way than a camera is. A camera sees a more true, honest interpretation of light versus, yeah, it's a whole thing. So basically, aperture, like I said, has to do with the blades in a lens, where if you're at, say, f1.4, the blades are going to be as wide as possible, and then if you start stopping down, you'll notice it's huge jumps. If you have your camera right now, put a lens on it, open it up to the widest possible aperture, and you'll see how wide those blades are, and as you stop down, they're going to go, you'll see the jump. From f1.4 even to f1.8, the diameter that the blades jump down to is astronomical because they're literally taking out half the amount of light, which is crazy to think about. But it's exponential, so it gets a smaller jump each time. Anyways, that's what Aperture is doing. And when that happens, as you stop down, the science of this is lost on me. But just know that you're getting a wider focus range. So at, say, f1.4, you have like a paper thin range of focus, versus if you're at f8, your range of focus is, huge comparatively. So before we go any farther and I tell you more about my opinions, I'm going to give you guys some examples, much like Sam did on Aperture. So let's jump over here. Okay, people, welcome to the desktop. I don't have my picture up because I need my hard drive plugged in. Anyways, here we are. I took a little sequence of photos, pretty much the same exact picture. The light was changing a little bit as we went, so it's not a perfect asymmetrical same exact thing. Deal with it. And this is just a real-life example of what Aperture does to a picture. So, this is f1.4. This is the thing that everyone wants, right? Notice the fall-off in the background. Even just like her shoulder over here is out of focus, blurred. You'll notice the nose blurred a little bit. Her eyes are tack sharp because I shoot Sony. And eye autofocus is awesome. Little hot tip for you. If you shoot at f1.4 and you have a camera that does eye autofocus, you need to use that because you want the eyes in focus. You don't want the nose in focus. You don't want the forehead in focus. You want the eyeballs because that's human connection right there. That was something I was taught. So, if you're using like an old Canon camera and you're shooting the forehead, stop it. You need to shoot for the eye, just so you know. Fun fact. Anyways, f1.4, beautiful fall off. Her shoulders are a little, you can see the shoulders are a little blurred. The hair is actually pretty in focus, all things considered. But you'll notice that the range is a very small range for, what's in focus and what's not. So that's f1.4. That's like the thing that everyone likes to shoot at, right? Okay. This is 1.8. Okay, there's not a huge difference. Notice the neck is still kind of blurry, maybe a little better. The hair's a little more in focus. I actually really like f1.8 now that I'm looking at it. This is what a lot of the affordable camera lenses come as, if they're prime. Just know that your f1.8 is going to look different than this f1.8. And the reason is, when a lens is at its widest, it's not at its sharpest optically. Keep that in mind. So if you're shooting at a lens that's at f1.8 and it's like the affordable option, there's no diss on that at all. That's awesome. Rock it. Just know f1.8 is not your sharpest. So the hair is really nice. Still beautiful fall off. Very nice fall off. and then we go to 2.5. So I specifically chose 2.5 because this is something that I was taught. That's just like, hey, this is like just what I use by my mentor. And I really love 2.5 actually. And I tend to favor 2.5 for locations where I'm not happy with the background, but we'll talk about that later. Notice the nose is a little out of focus, but good enough. The neck, much more in focus, still a little blurred, but you have that skin texture, which is nice, and you're still getting great fall off. Okay, obviously the difference between f1.4 and f2.5 there is some, but it's negligible in my opinion. So this is kind of my favorite. The other side note I have for you is f2.8 is sort of the focal range that people say as a general rule of thumb is you should not go below that number for portraits. By that I mean you don't want to shoot at f2.5. You want to shoot at 2.8 because that's how you're getting the person in focus. I disagree. I don't think that's necessarily true. Shoot at what you want. But if you're a beginner, I think that's good advice. Stick to 2.8, 3.5, and 4. Those should be kind of your home base apertures. Reason being, you might miss focus. You might get a blurry shot, and you're like, how did this get blurry? And it's because you did focus on the nose, or maybe it caught something else, and now the image is useless. So with 2.8, you have a little more room for error, basically. So that's 2.5. This is 3.5. I didn't do 4 because I'm dumb, and I just didn't think about it, I guess. But this is 3.5. Now she's pretty much in focus in the face all around. The hair is pretty much in focus. And then the shoulders they've still got that beautiful fall off. And you can see a little bit more of the background now, right? This is a really sharp image, obviously. Okay, you can see the background. It's blurred, but you have context to where she is. She's on like a walkway. And then there's 8. And interesting that there's such a difference in her look from f5 to f8. Look at that. So now, like, if I went up just a little bit more, that background's going to be insanely in focus, right? And now the neck is like completely in focus. Hair is super sharp. Face is super sharp. Shoulder is now pretty much in focus. Shoulder in focus, and you can get like the detail of her shirt. So this is f8, right? This is not maybe the best range to shoot at, given the background that I have. Again, I'll talk about that in a second. But let's just compare f8 to f1.4. Obviously, this is the better picture, right? It's got some interest. It looks really nice. There's beautiful fall off versus this is just like meh, right? The background is not interesting. I personally like 2.5 more. I think that this looks the best to me. I think this has everything that I want in it, right? So there you go. That's sort of your comparison from one to another. Right. Now that you have that comparison, let's talk a little bit about what I just touched on. The reason that I'm telling you to stray away from the widest aperture is for a couple of different reasons. And in Samuel Elkin's video, he sort of talked about it, and that's context. When you're shooting, if you shoot at f1.4, you're not getting any context because the background is so blurred that you have no idea where that person is. And sometimes you want that. There are situations as you shoot that you don't want anyone to know what the background is because it's a terrible background. And that's when you want to blur the crap out of it, okay? Let me also add that I'm approaching this as someone who does all sorts of photography for work. So I don't just do weddings and portraiture. I do commercial stuff. I do headshots and things of that nature. So I do some off-camera flash work as well. I know how to use off-camera flash pretty well. And I think a lot of people as well in the community, we have to present what we want to work on, but we know that we can do pretty much anything. and it's sort of a crux. That's a whole different topic. Anyways, when you take away that context of a scene, depending on what you're shooting, that's actually bad. You don't want to do that. And as an example, on a wedding day, let's say, you're shooting a picture of the couple kissing, okay? And let's say you shot that at f1.4 and you can't see anyone in the background. Let's say you're behind the altar and you're taking a picture of these people as they kiss at the end of the ceremony. If you shoot that at f1.4, you can now not see anyone in the background, right? You can't see anyone sitting in the chairs, clapping. You don't see grandma crying in the front row, right? You have now robbed that picture of that story. Does that make sense? So instead, what I would tell you to do in that situation, if it allows, is shoot it like f5.6. You're not going to get them perfectly in focus at f5.6, but now you know that there are people there. You understand where they're at and at what point in the day that was, and that has a memory attached to it because it's like, okay, I can see all the people that I knew that were here, and I get to share that moment with them, and they're so happy for us. So that's going to take your image to the next level. And there are situations where you can't do that. I understand. I'm just telling you that context is huge when you're capturing memories for people. The other thing here, and the sort of the big reason that I get frustrated by people shooting at f1.4 is they shoot at f1.4 and they don't understand why they shouldn't. They don't understand how to use a camera. They don't understand aperture and sharpness and context, and it's really lazy. So if you're someone who's shooting lazy, that's when I have a problem with you shooting at f1.4. Okay? By that I mean, I understand that it's fun to shoot at f1.4 and blow everything out. And when you get that camera that can shoot at those crazy wide apertures, do that. Just go shoot as much as possible and get that out of your system, because that lens doesn't just shoot at f1.4. Okay? It has a focal range. And you need to know when those focal ranges need to be used. So the example that I'll give you is if you went on Instagram right now. Most of you are probably photographers. If you go on Instagram, you look at the Explore page, you scroll through some portraits, you will see 9 times out of 10 a picture of an objectively attractive person, and it's shot at f1.4 at 1/8,000th of a second at ISO 50 and with off-camera flash using high-speed sync, and it's boring. It's a boring image. But these people have thousands of followers, and they're getting featured and all this other crap. That is someone who is lazy with their photography. I'm calling you out. Let me explain why. You bought a lighting setup with high-speed sync because you were like, ooh, high-speed sync, that's so cool. Now I can shoot at f1.4. In case you don't know, high-speed sync just allows you to change the shutter speed, and your lights it does its magic. I can explain that if you want in a later video. So now you're going to go shoot all of these portraits at f1.4, and you have just lost all the context of a scene. Most of these are street portraits. Why are you robbing me of that context? Why are you taking that away from the image? What is that doing for your image? Why is it making it better? Most people would say, because it looks cool. No, it's not cool. It's not interesting. You've just done the same thing that every Joe Schmo with a camera and some lights with a high-speed sync can do. Granted, it's not cheap. I get it. Whatever. You need to stop. Think about what you want to achieve with your shoot. I shudder to say it because I get it. It's annoying. People say it all the time. What story are you telling with that picture? And I don't mean you have to tell me a novel, but when I say tell me a story, what's going on in the picture that makes me want to keep looking at it? Right? If you just took a picture of a hot girl in some roller skates on the street and you did the teal and orange grade on it, Cool, I can do that tomorrow. I can go grab someone and go do that in 5 minutes. It's not talented. It's not talent. I get it if you're learning and you're just experimenting, but there are people that do this repeatedly, and they get high off their own supply and posting these pictures on Instagram and get thousands of likes, and it's not good photography. Just straight up. At least in my opinion. That's what I would say. And take that for what it's worth. If you're someone who does that, I would implore you to push yourself a little bit, come up with a concept, implement that concept, find a way to make that photo interesting, and not just shoot at f1.4. Add scenery. Give me context of where we're at. If we're in the city, why are we in the city? What's going on? You know, things like that. Push yourself a little bit. Be creative. Be artistic. This medium is really easy to get into because it doesn't require a lot of creativity to start. What I'm trying to say about that is that it tells me you're lazy because you didn't plan your shoot, you didn't come up with a concept or an idea, or that your location sucks. And I can forgive a sucky location. I can't forgive laziness. The other thing that I think is lost on a lot of people is when you shoot at the widest aperture, you're actually losing image quality. So like I was saying in that little comparison video of the apertures that I just did, the jump even from 1.4 to 1.8 on that lens is incredible. It's amazing how much better the image is. It's not so soft in the skin and in the background. It holds up really well. And there's something called sort of the sweet spot of a lens. And basically a lens has a range somewhere in between f4 to f8 where it is at its sharpest and its highest image quality. And that's sort of the range that you want to be at, right? Because you want to have that image quality. So you don't even have to shoot at f4 or f8. All I'm trying to tell you is you can go up from, if you're using an affordable lens, a budget lens, instead of shooting at 1.8, shoot at 2.5. I love shooting at 2.5. I'm not saying don't shoot shallow ever, but understand that image quality is a necessary thing. You want image quality. You want your photos to look really good. If there's anything to take away from this, just push yourself artistically and try and come up with something unique that no one's done before. And I promise you're going to love your pictures a hell of a lot more, okay? Understand that there is context to use the lowest possible f-stop, and such as low light, and just understand aperture, understand your camera, learn about how to implement it. I've done enough rambling for today. Whew! What did you think? Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I'm dumb? Like, Mason, I'm only shooting at f4. Let me know in the comments. Let me know. Tell me I'm an idiot. I'm cool. Let's talk. As always, follow me on all the social platforms if you like what I'm doing and you want to see more. Hopefully it won't take me another month. It's just at Mason Joel Photo for everything. You guys have been awesome. My name's Mason. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.